I have no affiliation with High Country Conservation. I am here helping Jen out because she is on her way out of town. I do have a garden plot at the Frisco Garden, so maybe I'll see some of you guys around. But yeah, thank you so much for coming out. It's really great to see new faces, all of that good stuff. I dragged my fiance here last summer for this same kind of first meeting, so glad to see you here. So we are really lucky to have Sherry here to share her knowledge with us. My understanding is that it is a wealth of knowledge and very, very robust, that we are in very good hands this afternoon, evening. Hope everybody's getting excited with the weather turning. I hear it's supposed to snow on Wednesday, so I guess that's what Jen's talking about, with we will not be gardening until about May 15th. But Sherry is the owner-operator here at Alpine Gardens, so I'm sure that got more knowledge than even the time that we're allowing for today. But they've been here since in the county since about 1984.
Well, we started the business as a nursery in 1984, but I've been here since 1984, and I'm an old-timer.
And had this location since about 1996. 97.
Yeah.
So
Well, built the building in 97.
long
Yeah.
time locals, and again, we're just very lucky to have Sherry's knowledge, and thank you so much.
Oh, it's
So
my pleasure. Yeah,
we
this is
introduce
fun.
Sherry to everybody.
Yeah,
Feel
yeah.
free, open forum, ask questions,
Oh
all
yeah,
that
you
good
guys.
stuff.
This is definitely not a formal meeting of any kind. So please ask me questions. Design-wise, there's the critical thing I'd like to talk to you about is the row versus like the garden that is sectioned kind of. And you've maybe heard of square foot gardening. Well, we really can't do square foot gardening up here because one plant would never grow into a square foot because our season is just too short. We could call it 6-inch gardening. But so the idea I want to take you to today is getting away from the rows, particularly because you don't have a ton of space, and maybe starting to interplant, which means mix plants together, and also create almost like a zigzag design out of your garden. Because believe it or not, when you do a row, it makes it easy for identification. Say you start your rows and you don't know what a carrot looks like, you don't know what a lettuce looks like, you know, at least you have nice little labels. One of the challenges of not doing a row is that you're going to have a hard time labeling. But at some point, if you're second-year gardeners or something, you'll start to understand. But what I'd like to see you guys start doing is, at least this year, make a zigzag pattern, because you really waste about 30% of your space by putting your vegetables in a nice, neat, and tidy row. So, and one of the ways that we're going to get to this idea of making sections is I want to talk a little bit about plants that grow nicely together. Two ways that they grow nicely together. Some of them complement each other, and there are different lengths of time. So a radish, has anybody grown radishes here? A radish is up and edible in 24 days or so. Broccoli is going to take all season. So what I'm suggesting to you today is that you take a radish and a broccoli and you make a section out of that. And they're going to start at the same time, but they're going to finish at very different times. So obviously your radish is going to come up early. So it can really be planted even right next to the broccoli, because it will have been harvested a month and a half before your broccoli is ready to be harvested. And at the end, everybody gets to draw their garden. So we'll kind of play with that towards the end. I really don't need to talk to you guys too much about how to face your garden, do I? Everybody really has the garden that they're going to have. But one thing I'd like to talk to you about is where some of these plants are going to go. If your garden, say this is your garden plot, and this is the south, this is north, you're not going to want to plant your peas on this south side and shade all of your fellers that are going to be growing back here that are short. So that's another thing we'll play with today, is that we're going to want to make sure that our gardens not only are in little sections, but that they're also not going to be interrupting the sun potential for those plants in front and behind them. So as I'm chatting about this stuff, sort of be thinking about what you're going to want to grow, because some people don't like radishes, some people aren't planning on peas, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. The crop rotation is really important. We showed a movie, Dirt, here about a week ago, and it was talking about quality of dirt. You guys have fantastic dirt, by the way. But what happens with plants, if you plant the same plant in the same space every year, and that plant, say, gets aphids, which is very common here, those aphids are not above living in the soil for that winter and coming back. So some of these bugs are very plant specific, like a cabbage worm is going to go to a cabbage. So one of the nice things about crop rotation, which basically means that you're going to rotate where you're going to plant your plants. So say this is your garden, and last year your potatoes were here, you're going to want to move your potatoes to another section so that you decrease the chance of disease and or bugs attacking that plant, because they may or may not have survived in the soil. I plant my garden always on Mother's Day because I make my kids rototill the soil and do all the work. But also I have a friend that always plants her garden. She's in Silverthorne. She seeds her garden in April. You could seed your garden in the fall. The seeds will come up when the soil temperature is right. And thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
And you don't have to worry about waiting. I mean, as long as you can get to that soil, it's not frozen, and a soils test or something has been done, and you know it's ready to go, or you've added your fertilizer amendments to it and it's ready to go, you really can seed. The danger that, of course, we have in gardening up here is that at any time it could snow. I have never in all of my years been experienced a temperature of 11 degrees, which is supposed to be our temperature on Wednesday night, ever, in the 30 years I've been here. So that, we always have to be ready for that, but I'm not very happy about it, to be honest. It's making me kind of cranky. So, but even so, your seeds will be in the ground, they can be frozen. Seeds are so smart, they know when to grow, and they'll wait for that temperature to come up. So whenever you get at your garden, do you all do it at the same time, or do they have you go in and do it whenever you like?
Never done it before.
Oh, so first year.
It's whenever you
so
like.
Fun.
So yeah, whenever you're ready to go
They can
in and
just go
start
in and do
planting,
it.
some people feel more comfortable fighting the bullets a little bit sooner. We'll wait with the.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I feel like, well, Breck is of course much colder, and that soil may not even be thawed out, I'm not really sure, but I think you can pretty much dive in whenever you're ready. So I'm certainly going to do it in another week. So any questions on design? I mean, did I kind of, I probably could have done a little drawing, but you know, we talked real quick, let me just tell you guys, we talked a little bit about not doing rows. But if you're a first-year gardener, I actually do encourage my first-year gardeners to do rows, because that's overwhelming to sort of guess what that plant might be coming up. And it's stressful enough just to wonder if it's a damn weed or not. So I think if you're a first-year gardener, go ahead and do the rows. You're going to lose a little bit of space, but you're not going to care. You're going to be so excited that you're even getting something green to come out of the soil that you're not going to worry about that at all. So maybe the second year, you can come and do my second year veggie gardening class, and would love to have you all back. And I talk a little bit more in depth about that, you know, getting into sections and trying to get that 30% more space out of your garden. So, any questions on design? Is everybody pretty comfortable? Is everybody planning pretty much to do rows? Are you thinking?
I was thinking about like kind of squaring mine off. I don't know what the square footage gardening is, but like I kind of, like last year I had a bunch of mixed lettuce seeds and threw them all into one square. And it had a bunch of spinach and threw them into another square. And then kind of kept that for like my lettuces, and then had kind of this zigzag rows for like the carrots, the green onion, you know, things like that. I don't know.
No, I think that's just fine. And I think it's nice to be able to mix. Lettuce and spinach can actually take quite a bit of shade. So sometimes it's nice to grow those along with something that's going to get a lot taller. If you're going to trellis and grow peas, you'll need a trellis. And you could actually do lettuce and spinach behind that, and it would provide some shade. Or you might do that in amongst your broccolis that are going to come up and, you know, in the heat of the summer, maybe provide a little cover. Kale gets huge here. Kale loves it here because it's cold. And that is another one that could provide some shade. So as far as doing, talking about seeds, these guys I started on April 14th, I think. And part of the reason why I think they're growing so well is because they're in this black container which bakes them and they grow really fast. But in this batch of plants, you're not going to see lettuce, you're not going to see spinach, you're not going to see kale, you're not going to see radishes, carrots, and does anybody have any idea why? Well, the carrot is, yeah, one of the reasons exactly with a carrot and a radish is that it's gonna have to break through that membrane, which is biodegradable. It's not a problem, but it's a carrot and a radish are a root, and if you damage the root, the plant is going to struggle. So anything that grows into the ground like that, I usually like to direct seed. It's just so that there's no messing around, no taking any risk with damaging it. So I wouldn't start those plants. Lettuce, spinach, kale, chard, because they don't need to be started inside. They're going to grow best outside. They're cold tolerant, very, very hardy, and it's a real pain in the neck to try to transplant carrot seeds and little carrot starts that are, I mean, I would have to wear glasses to find those little roots. So I think the bigger seed stuff is much easier. And these guys are all going to take a lot longer. So everybody has a label of what it is up here. And then over here on the left-hand side, it will say if it's cool season or warm season. This stuff here is, some of it's warm season, some of it's cool season, but it's, the other important piece of information is the 65 or 45 or whatever you may have underneath that days. And that's the days that it's going to take for you to plant that seed and harvest that vegetable or fruit, whatever you're trying to grow. So if it's cool season, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a short grower, like it's going to take 30 days. Because this, I've got peas, it really means that it's probably going to take a light frost. So you could plant this in the ground April 15th in Silverdorn, let it grow, and it can take a light frost, and you're still going to get peas. But if I start them like this, I'm ahead of the game by I'll be ahead of the game by, they'll probably go into the ground in the end of May for here, probably the 10th to the 15th for Frisco, probably not until the 20th for Breckenridge, so you guys at Breckenridge. But you're ahead of the game by 30 days. I'm going to get a whole lot more peas out of this plant than I am if I were to plant it directly. But when you're talking about lettuces, you know, if you want to do primarily lettuces, you're going to be eating on these lettuces after 40 days all summer. And one of the beautiful things about gardening up here is that we have cold nights and we have relatively warm days, but the cold nights keep those plants from bolting. And you don't want your flowers or your, I'm trying to think if I have something bolting. Does everybody know what bolting means? Actually, I do have something bolting. Let me go get it. So there's different kinds of greens like you could use for cooking greens, and this is bolting. So see where the little seed head is starting to form? Can you guys kind of see that too? Because a plant's entire life, kind of like a lot of men I know, is to procreate, right? So they're going to do everything they can to make a seed. And if you can keep them from making a seed, they're going to continue to grow leaves. Well, in this case, that's what we want. When they start to do that, you actually want to pull that off. Same with herbs. A lot of people will want to grow basil this summer. Don't let your basil go. The other thing that you might have to do when they do try to bolt is you have to take them out of the container and pop them into a bigger container, because plants will flower. One of the tricks about growing flowers and making them bloom is you put them, you feed them so they get very, very tight in the pot, and that's what makes them bloom, because they want to procreate. They want to make that seed. That's their whole bane of existence, is I've got to create something. So anyway, back to the packet. So some of you guys have the warm season tomatoes. It might have been all I grabbed, I think, was tomatoes. So that's going to be that's going to be something that I'm going to recommend that you definitely start inside. I'm actually growing quinoa too, and there's a high altitude corn. So I thought I really want to have corn this summer. I may have one corn, but I'm gonna make it happen. Let's see. If you turn the page, your second page, I love this. It's such a good reference. Has anybody heard of the book Solar Gardening by the Poissons? It's a really old book. It's real fun to look at the pictures because they look like me when I was in high school. They're an old couple that have been gardening in New Hampshire for a long, long time. They've invented this wonderful dome, and they garden year-round, literally year-round, where it snows and the whole 9 yards. And I always have that book for my presentations, but I lent it to somebody and I can't remember who. So if you come again, I'm going to order it because I'm missing it so badly. But this is, I wanted to make sure they got credit. It's from the book Solar Gardening. If you're ever somewhere and you get a chance to look at this book, you'll see why I'm so crazy about it. Because they're growing at a high altitude like we're doing. And they're eating out of their garden. Maybe not 12 months out of the year, but they're actually eating out of their garden. I think probably a good 9 or 10 months. I have one as well, and I stuck it outside. And I did eat, until almost Christmas, I did have greens and onions and kale. And it was just wonderful. It was so much fun. I could pretend I actually ate something slower. But here is a great description of the cold tolerant, and then we have the cool hardy. And both of those are very doable in Summit County. Definitely your cold tolerant are going to be the ones that I recommend you direct seed. The ones that are cool hardy, you can either direct seed, or if you want to really get a jump on it, you can start them early and then put them out. My caution to you about starting plants inside and then moving them outside is if they've never seen the wind or felt the wind, they sometimes will absolutely collapse. So during the day, I actually keep these fans going. And if you're starting a little container inside, you want to get one of those little personal fans or something and just keep the wind going on them, or at least have a window open so that they can get some wind on them. They're just windy. You want good, solid stems. If you think about the bristlecone pine, if anybody's ever seen bristlecone pine way up on the slopes, they're usually not really thin little guys going like this. They're big, chunky, holding on for life kind of guys. So think about that if you do choose to do the indoor stuff. This I didn't make a copy for you guys, but this is just some fun information. Onions repel bugs, so you can basically put the onions anywhere in your garden, and I recommend it. In fact, last year I surrounded my garden with onions, so I just did a complete, solid row of onions around the whole thing because I have a lot of pocket holders up in my house in Tarnica.
Would you recommend doing onions from seed or from
seed's not going to work.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And actually this year I decided to get onions in
That's okay. Shall we dance?
I decided to get onions that are already growing. Usually I carry onion sets, which are like miniature little onions. They look like the onions you get in the jars, And they're fine, but they never get big. I don't know if maybe this big if you're lucky. So this year I'm getting onion starts. I think they will have grown about this tall. They come in what's called root bound. So they're not in dirt, but I'll keep them moist and like sawdust, and then you would just plant them. I think we'll be able to get a decent onion from them. I'll only have them for 3 weeks because past that time they start to not really bolt. Well, they may start to bolt, but you have to get them planted. So I'll only have them for the first 2 weeks of May. So if you guys are at all interested, that's when I'll plant them. Do not plant them, however, with beans and peas. And I don't know why. It's just a lot of this stuff is just, people that have been around for a long time and they figured it out. So just keep it away from that. Garlic, it doesn't grow well with anybody. And so apparently you need to keep your garlic. And I don't know, I always just have. Maybe my grandmother did and I just figured it out. But I just keep, like I have it out there, I just have it on the side. It's kind of a pretty landscape plant. So you can even plant garlic just right into your landscape garden. So. Brassicas are broccoli, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. They go well with potatoes. You plant carrots with tomatoes, lettuce, and beans. And beans are a nitrogenizer. I did want to mention what I did with that. You guys probably don't need to worry about it because you have such great soil, and it's true. Exactly. The soil's beautiful. And Jen is just a genius when it comes to composting and soil. But if you're ever doing one at home and you've used up, your plants will use up a lot of nutrient getting through the summer because we're maximizing them. We're feeding them. We want them to be huge and big, and they need to do all of that in 5 days. They need to do all of that in about 40 days. So you've used up a lot of stuff in your soil. If you need to get nitrogen back in, and I'm so excited this company is starting to carry these are cover crops. You plant them, you can actually plant them in your garden the last maybe 30 days of the summer. Let them grow. You can either cut them and just mulch them into the soil, or you can just let them die back and they will add nitrogen to the soil. Beans do the same thing. So that's why they're saying that beans can be put with the lettuce, tomatoes, and give nitrogen to the tomatoes. Plant radishes with squash, cucumber, and lettuce. The other reason that you might plant your radishes with the squash, cucumber, and lettuce, any guesses? Bugs, that's good too, absolutely. But also they're going to come up and they're only going to take 24 days before you have to eat them. So you plant radishes can actually go with anybody, but your squash, your cucumber, not so much your lettuce. Your squash and cucumber are going to take all summer. So it's another thing you plant right next door and not lose out on any space. Beets, you plant beets with lettuce, onions, and the brassicas. This is a really good one, and I actually just learned this. I didn't know this. Plant mint with lettuce to repel the slugs. I always plant my stuff too close because I'm greedy, and I want this stuff to be amazing, and I want a lot of food. So I always get slugs. Don't panic if you get slugs. That's just because we're trying to make the most of our small plot. Most people will put out deer because slugs are attracted to deer. They crawl in and they drown. Diatomaceous earth is another one if you get slugs. It slices them and dehydrates them. It's not as friendly as deer. So I recommend deer. I mean, on the side of the slug, I recommend deer. But mint, what a great idea to put the mint there because a lot of bugs don't like mint. However, aphids do like mint. So if aphids are a problem, don't do that. Marjoram is a good repellent. Marjoram is one of those that you can plant in and around your whole garden. Also nasturtiums. Everybody know what nasturtiums are? Fabulous plant. Maybe on your way out, if you look on my gazebo, on the left-hand side, I have a nasturtium growing. It's a beautiful yellow flower that's edible, and it's kind of spicy. You are more than welcome to pluck one of the round leaves and taste it. It's really, really good. That planted out through your garden is also a deterrent because it's spicy. Horseradish is a perennial here, a wonderful perennial. And just a quick note, because I love horseradish, if you use it, if you want to harvest it, you actually take half the plant and you leave the other half so that it stays and regrows and regenerates itself. But beautiful horseradish up here. The leaves get this tall, they're wide, they're big. I used to use them for wrapping birthday presents for my kids. Let's see, basil planted with tomatoes increases tomato yield. I thought that was fantastic. So if you're doing tomatoes, say in one of the garden boxes, do you guys know what the earth box looks like? It's this green box on wheels, and I always do my tomatoes like that. I didn't plan very well because I have one in the greenhouse. But I do 2 tomatoes on either side, and I do basil in the middle. And I didn't even do that on purpose. It was just blind luck that it actually increases yield, and I do get fantastic yield on my tomatoes. So plant your tomatoes with basil. You can't go outside very much, though, with the tomatoes and the basil. But you guys have your plastic houses. They should do very nicely in there. So don't do your whole bed with that, because if it goes to 11 degrees on June 10th, we're all going to be screaming. Does anybody know what borage is?
It's my favorite.
I love borage. Let me get a picture so you guys can see it. It's an herb, and it's not very well known, but it's delightful. It's got, I'll just kind of walk around so you guys can see, beautiful sky blue flowers. You can cut those little flowers off and float them in drinks. And it is like one of the #1 bug repellents. It's like the bulletproof for the garden. It's a bug repellent. One of the reasons it's a bug repellent, it sort of has agitating foliage. If you've ever grown hopspine up here, which is a fantastic climber for us, it's like our #1 climber. Very irritating on the skin. Borage can be that way too, but That planted in your garden will absolutely help with the bugs. So, and also it has a little bee on there, so it must mean that it attracts bees and beneficial insects. So, if you would like, and only if you would like, I have an email list here. We have a really fun thing going on right now called Movie Night, and we're showing what we hope are educational movies, thought-stimulating movies, and then afterwards we always have some people if you have questions. We just showed Genetic Roulette. We showed a great movie. Jen and I were the panel on that one for Dirt. It was wonderful. On Wednesday night we're showing Thrive, and I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice, but it's about kind of like mega corporations and how they're affecting our lives. It's very good. We're not trying to scare anybody or have an opinion, but it's some good stuff. And if anybody has a movie they would like to bring, please approach me. There's great documentaries out there. And I'm just loving this. But also, my classes, I'll send you, you'll be on my email list, so I'll let you know when I'm having classes, and sales. So please, if you'd like, I'm going to leave this right here, and if you guys would like to sign it. Also know that we have bonus bucks here. So for every $10 you spend, you get $1 back, and you can bring it in and spend it like real money. So if you're looking for stuff, I would love to help you. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carrie.